Welcome to Matterport's webinar, Opening Doors to New Opportunities, introducing Matterport True 3D for professional photographers. I'm Jonathan Buckley with Marketing at Matterport, and I'll be your presenter today. Today we're talking to pro photographers on the cutting edge looking for opportunities to grow and expand their businesses. Here's a brief overview of the topics we'll be covering today. We've got a very special guest I will be proud to introduce shortly, a Matterport service partner. And if you stick with us to the very end, we'll have very special offers for joining us, which will include deals on several cameras. We're living in times of accelerated change. We want to help you expand your business. However you start, whatever your niche, Matterport grows with you. There's no question that photography has seen its share of rapid change in the last 5 to 10 years. This forces us to stay ahead of the curve or fall victim to the commoditization of fees in many cases. First, let me cover a Matterport company overview for those of you that may not be familiar with Matterport as a company. To level set for those viewers not yet familiar with Matterport, our goal is to establish 3D and virtual reality models as a primary medium for experiencing, sharing, and reimagining the world. Our product was first launched in 2014. We operate in about 100 countries. That's our photographers operate in 100 countries. We have offices in several locations, as you can see, with headquarters in Silicon Valley, California, in the United States. We've created over 1.5 million spaces and have created over 1 billion views of those spaces online. We count 5,000 pro photographers among our ranks and about 4,500 Matterport service partners. More about Matterport service partners, or MSPs, in just a bit. As you can see, there continues to be a growing worldwide interest in Matterport. This, as measured by Google Trends worldwide for the term Matterport, as you can see back from the company inception through this current period. In 2017, Matterport was named the fastest growing company in North America on Deloitte's Technology Fast 500. We operate in some major industries, including travel, hospitality, engineering, construction, insurance, property claims, and our start has been a very solid start in residential real estate, where you'll see us prevalent, multifamily, and commercial real estate as well. Obviously, today we're talking to pro photographers, so photography happens to be a big segment. Photographers serving these various segments of the market. But this is not all. Our pro photographers have had great experience, obviously, in residential and commercial real estate, where these being the first segments to clearly be the early adopter verticals for immersive 3D photography. But new industry verticals continue to develop at a very rapid pace. This is a chart from February 2019 from Matterport service providers self-reporting in which market verticals they now have experience. As you can see in the lower left, even in the other category, you can see Matterport starting to be used in such things as aircrafts and yachts, auto repair and dealerships, colleges and fitness centers. But construction and hotels and event venues continue to have very strong and early growth statistics. The Matterport service partners, 70% of whom self-reported as photography services in the same February 2019 study, also reported how they layered on other photography services in their offerings. As you can see, 72% reported also offering drone, video, or photography services, DSLR photography, or 2D photography as we call it, measurement services, and other services wrapped around what they offer with Matterport. In its simplest form, What Matterport offers can be represented in three icons here: cameras, cloud, and community. And this makes up the total solution. Here we see our flagship Pro 2 3D camera. It scans the room in 8-foot segments, and in the cloud, these images are stitched together, color adjusted, and developed into a 3D model. It's important to note, True 3D is not 360-degree photos or panoramas where the viewer stands in one place and looks around, but rather it's fully immersive, where the viewer can walk through the virtual space as if they were there, moving from room to room and looking at various objects. It's easier to show you than to tell you about this experience. So here we'll go to an actual model and show and navigate around a space. Here you see an example, this one being the Irish Immigration Museum in Dublin, Ireland, of a scan of the museum where we can zoom in and walk around the museum, going from space to space, moving and navigating as if we were there. We can go up and see the various different installations, and given the clarity of, in this case, the Pro 2, Matterport Pro 2 camera can actually read the writing of the displays and navigate from room to room. This is what we call True 3D. You're not stuck in one space where you're looking around, but rather using your mouse, or if you were using a mobile device, you would use your finger, can have a complete immersive experience. If someone wanted to put a piece of information to have the user, let's say, learn a little bit more about this installation over here, you can put what's called a matter tag or a little dot which pops up information. You can embed multimedia information such as an additional video or another URL link or additional text to direct the viewer to additional information. So now you have an idea what True 3D from Matterport really looks like. And as you know, a picture says 1,000 words, so we wanted to show that to you. As we like to say, Matterport Cloud is one of those clouds that has a silver lining. What makes the Matterport cloud so unique is that all the stitching, light balancing, HDR processing, etc. is done automatically by the cloud. Post-production work is reduced to some system-level corrections within the Matterport Showcase application, not nearly the same time as a DSLR post-production workflow. Now, what do our service partners say about bringing Matterport into their photography services offerings? 74% report generating more revenue per client by bringing in Matterport's True 3D into their offerings. 68% report having a more competitive stance in the marketplace, and 64% say they win more business because of Matterport. But don't take it from us. Let me introduce you to a pro photographer who uses the Matterport Pro 2. You'll have a chance to ask her questions at the end in our Q&A section. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce the CEO and founder of Hopscotch Interactive, Emily Olman. In 2017, Hopscotch Interactive was nominated as both Matterport's Service Partner of the Year and for our Matty Awards, where we recognize the greatest spaces our customers have created. Located just north of Berkeley, California, Emily serves as the VR and AR Association San Francisco chapter co-president. In 2018, she was honored by the Virtual World Society with the Nextant Medallion for unlocking hearts and linking minds through VR. She was a jury member for Mac Media's inaugural Aurea Awards and is a founding supporter of the Open AR Cloud Foundation. So Emily, what was your experience in bringing Matterport into your suite of services you offer at your business, Hopscotch Interactive?
Well, I was actually a really early adopter of the Matterport system. And so for me, it was very much about getting to learn how to operate the Matterport camera and to work with Workshop and to really just start familiarizing myself with the technology to see who I could offer it to, who would be my new customers, and who would basically benefit the most from having 3D photography, virtual tours, and sort of all of the features that the Matterport system offers.
Excellent. What percentage of your time are you doing 2D photography now at Hopscotch Interactive?
So it's interesting that you ask. I actually started the business initially by offering the Matterport photography first, and then adding the 2D or still photography, real estate photography after that. And so I would say I do it probably about equal amounts. So I have some customers that still just need 2D photography and still photography. And then I have some customers who want to have just Matterport, but probably the majority of my customers want both. And I've been surprised actually that this has been the way that my customers have preferred things, but it does make sense because, some habits don't change, and for some people they do. And a lot of times having, for instance, the Matterport to be able to offer to somebody when they are on a budget, we're able to kind of kill two birds with one stone and use the 2D photography stills that we can extract from a photo shoot to help them out. And so that's been a big benefit, as well as having the flexibility.
Oh, interesting. Did adding Matterport to your services make you more competitive as other MSPs report?
Well, I would say that it certainly helps to have a Matterport camera to offer in terms of services, because not with every customer, but with many of the customers, things like being able to generate floor plans and to do that efficiently and at a lower price than what they were usually spending was a huge competitive advantage. And if you go back in time to when the Pro 2 first came out, I was perhaps one of the first to upgrade to the Pro 2 camera. And that meant that it was a big competitive advantage because I had invested very early on in adapting to sort of the latest tech, which meant that other photographers that didn't have a Pro 2 certainly weren't going to get the business because the customers were more interested and preferred the higher quality 4K imagery.
So Emily, would you say that you generate more revenue per average client with Matterport than with if you had just continued and developed a 2D photography business alone?
I think so. I think that if you look at average bookings and the billings for those bookings, certainly being able to leave the house and go to a shoot that you're already going to be going to, you still have the investment of your time to drive there. And if you're going there and you get to offer more services, whether that's adding, if you go for 2D only, you're a photographer and you're going out anyway, being able to do the scan in addition will add, I think at the minimum adds probably another, 50% margin onto your shoot, potentially even 100%, depending on what you're charging for your stills versus your Matterport scanning. So I think that it's worth somebody looking at it seriously when they are already going out to shoot and they know that when they get there, they can add another 50% or more to that revenue per shoot.
Excellent. And for a bonus question, not on the screen, have you seen any sort of waning and desire for 3D photography in the marketplace? I know there have been in some markets, there have been claims of saturation or a waning in desire for 3D photography. We haven't seen it at the corporate level here at Matterport, but as a 3D photographer, have you seen it out in your marketplace?
I wouldn't say this year. No, I think that there are certainly, with the seasonality of being a real estate marketer, that there's always going to be some months or seasons where things just get so busy. But we honestly have not been able to keep up this spring. There have been so many requests for photography that for instance, I've had to train and recruit other people to work with me. And that's been, I think that's just an indication of the fact that, either my customers are growing their business or that, we've been successful in growing ours. And so I don't think that there's a waning. I do hear from time to time that some realtors or specific to the real estate industry, into that vertical, that folks have tried it and that they don't like it for whatever reason, and they want to go and maybe show the homes themselves. And so it's really a personal preference sometimes, but I wouldn't say that it's overall any indication of slowing down. But I do think that photographers should consider that there is some seasonality, as with any business.
Excellent. Well, there you have it from Emily Olman of Hopscotch Interactive. Thank you so much, Emily, for your contribution to this webinar here today.
Oh, you're welcome. And yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Now we turn our attention to how one might get started as a pro photographer with Matterport. Let's look back at the 3 C's: camera, cloud, and community, or the MSP community, I should say. The pro photographer will probably want the workhorse of the group, the Pro 2. It would be considered the functional equivalent of a higher-end Pro DSLR up against the point and shoots. The Leica BLK 360 is a highly specialized camera for large and bright spaces and for super high precision. It's used mainly by architects and engineers for construction projects. Please note that there are several other requirements for this. We'll cover them in a second, but we also offer several 360 cameras which might suit your needs as well. They do fill niches for our pro photographers, such as very tight spaces. We do have photographers, for instance, that want to film inside automobiles as part of auto dealership filming. And these cameras fill that spot very nicely inside tight spaces like automobiles or planes or yachts. There are also additional requirements that you would need with cameras, including a tripod, which understandably most people on this call probably have already, a quick release clamp, and then downloading of a free application from Matterport called the Capture app, and then an iPhone or iPad. Then there is picking out of the cloud, or the second C. If you're interested in joining our Matterport service provider network, there are 2 plans, 2 sets of plans, the professional and business sets of plans that are divided by number of users and number of active models that may fit your needs. Professional seems to be our most popular, starting at $69 a month, which includes all fees for processing in large spaces, and then they climb from there depending on volume that you need in terms of active models that are online and users. Active models is a concept that we have. Active means online and usable and presentable. And under all these plans, you can create an unlimited number of archived models. Say a model was used and online for perhaps a realtor and the house was then sold. You don't necessarily want to delete that model, but you can now archive it and it won't count against your plan. We offer free and starter packages as well that start with 360 cameras. The MSP program has several benefits: onboarding materials, advanced training and tips, sales collateral, and forum membership, as well as free qualified leads in certain areas. When leads depend on where you're located, the competition in your area, these are thought of as a bonus, not a reason necessarily to get a camera, but a bonus for our MSPs. And again, MSP program requires a professional camera and professional cloud membership. When you shoot with Matterport, you get quite a number of assets for your clients in addition to the core true 3D model. Then there are additional assets that you can add to your client sale that can be generated for an additional marginal fee. These include adding the model to Google Street View, or downloading of an OBJ file, which is useful for importing into CAD and Revit, and a colorized point cloud, which would be important for architects and engineers, and 360 photospheres, and of course, floor plans. For anyone with detailed questions after this that we don't get to in Q&A, I'd like to point your attention to support.matterport.com, where you can plug in a lot of questions. Most of your questions may be answered right there in that particular forum. Now, are you ready to give this a shot? Because I did promise you, for those that stayed to the end, that we would have some special camera deals. We have the first set, which is a special $200 off the purchase of Pro 2. See the email we're going to send you right after the webinar with a code. There may be a slight delay after the webinar to receive the email, but rest assured it will be on its way. Unique codes and terms and conditions will be sent following this webinar. The same for special offers with the Insta360 One X, savings of $55, $85 plus free gift, and then Ricoh Theta Z1, the newest addition to the camera lineup, has a special offer with a savings of $119.95 with a special code that will be emailed to you. With that, I would like to thank you for your time thus far, and we now turn our attention to the live question and answer portion of the webinar with both Emily Olman of Hopscotch Interactive and myself.